In today's news roundup, to conclude the week, Thailand considers shortening the mandatory quarantine period for those entering Thailand for certain circumstances. Meanwhile, police have been hard at work finding more content creators on OnlyFans to arrest, and tourism operators are now openly slamming the government for flip-flopping on when to finally open the country. Details on these stories and many more coming right up. Welcome to Thailand News Today, bringing you a summary of the most important stories in Thailand, as well as the occasional chuckle. Now, in our first story today, the mandatory quarantine period for those entering Thailand from overseas might be reduced from 14 days to 10 days, or even just a week for some. In an attempt to boost the economy, the National Communicable Disease Committee is proposing a shortening of quarantine periods for travelers under certain circumstances. The proposal was made in a meeting today of the committee with Minister of Public Health Anutin Chanvirakul chairing the meeting and vowing to pass on the plan to the Center of COVID-19 Situation Administration. The idea is to shorten quarantine lengths based on the risk of the traveler and the amount they are protected from COVID-19. It would apply to both domestic and international travelers in key popular tourist destinations. According to the proposed plan, visitors arriving by land that have not been fully vaccinated will be required to quarantine for the full 14 days and undergo 2 RT-PCR tests during that time. Visitors who are only missing a proper vaccine certificate and arriving by air will only be subject to a 10-day quarantine and also be required to take a RT-PCR test at the start and end of their quarantine. Visitors who have been fully vaccinated with proper documentation will only need to quarantine for 7 days, again taking a test at both the start and finish of the quarantine. Proponents of the plan observed that a shorter quarantine seemed reasonably safe, pointing at the Phuket sandbox where just 101 international tourists have contracted COVID out of nearly 9,500 total infections in the area, showing that local infections were a much bigger risk than quarantined foreign arrivals. Tourism operators have expressed frustration as Thailand's reopening is pushed back another month, primarily due to inadequate vaccination levels. This marks the third time the reopening of Pattaya, Chiang Mai, and Hua Hin has been delayed, with vaccine shortages being the reason given each time. Thai AirAsia's largest shareholder, Asia Aviation, has expressed frustration at the delay, with the executive chairman saying the flip-flopping is damaging the country's reputation. Tasapon Bejaveld says airlines had started to invest in service maintenance and recruit staff to prepare for a new flow of tourists. He has criticized the government for insufficient vaccine supplies in areas poised to reopen, adding that officials should have properly evaluated the curve of the pandemic and prepared risk management plans for each area before confirming a reopening date. Tasapon said if the government announced earlier that the country would be ready for inbound tourists in December or even January, we would have no objection. We would have shifted our focus to the domestic market in the final quarter with full force. The flip-flop worsens a situation which is already somehow at its worst, particularly regarding our financial stability. Thaned Suparahasarangsi from the Chonburi Tourism Council agrees, pointing out that tourism operators in Pattaya have made all the preparations for an October reopening in line with the government's own orders. He says the only thing they were unable to do was provide residents with vaccines. He adds that the country's reputation with overseas tour operators is ruined. He said, quote, "Nobody will listen to us again. They will wait for an official announcement, which may occur in November at the earliest, which is too late to capture high season traffic as international flights often need 2 to 3 months notice for air traffic permission. It also takes that long to promote those packages." A pilot project is underway launched by the Department of Land Transport to install 3,000 partitions in taxis for COVID-19 safety throughout the month of October. The Minister of Transport stated they hope the move promotes confidence in higher transportation services and increases public safety against the spread of COVID-19. The acrylic partitions will be installed in taxis to block any droplets from spreading COVID-19 from drivers to passengers and vice versa. The Transport Minister led an opening ceremony yesterday to mark the launch of the program and the first fleet of partition-equipped cabs being put into use. The partitions have been manufactured with clear acrylic that includes a QR code, which customers in the taxis can scan and rate their experience. They were built to be easily fitted into medium and large-sized taxis and designed not to obstruct visibility or any part of the operation of the vehicles. All 3,000 participating taxis will be outfitted with the partitions by the end of October. The emergency decree will likely be extended for another 2 months while the government drafts an amendment to the Communicable Disease Act. A committee chaired by the chief of the National Security Council approved a proposal to extend the order. The decree, which was put in place at the start of the pandemic last year, gives the Thai government sweeping powers to impose curfews and restrictions to combat COVID-19. According to a report, the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration Subcommittee also approved a proposal to postpone the country's reopening of 5 provinces from October the 1st to November the 1st. Tourism officials have been pushing for Bangkok, Chonburi, Chiang Mai, Prachuap Khiri Khan, and Phetchaburi to reopen to travelers from overseas next month. The proposal will be presented at Monday's General CCSA meeting chaired by Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. The Thai Education Ministry says all vocational and secondary school students should be fully vaccinated by November the 15th, and the vaccination of 210,000 teachers is being accelerated ahead of schools reopening. In a report, Supat Jampathong from the Education Ministry says the Food and Drug Administration has approved both the Moderna and Pfizer mRNA vaccines for use in students between the ages of 12 and 17. He adds that the ministry also expects students to be fully vaccinated by November the 15th, so that students can go back to school by the second semester of the academic year of 2021. The minister said that anyone experiencing side effects as a result of vaccination will be compensated, but that the chances of adverse side effects in children are low. Responding to whether 360,000 primary school students who are in grade 6 and of a similar age could be vaccinated, he said such a move would require FDA approval, with a study currently underway into the suitability of the Pfizer vaccine. Meanwhile, Sarawut Bunsuk from the Department of Health says Pfizer has been approved in the US and some European countries for use in children over the age of 3, but he believes more studies are needed as the Pfizer vaccine has been shown to cause myocarditis in young boys, usually after the second dose. He noted that out of 1 million young Pfizer recipients locally, only 1 person experienced this reaction, and the patient has subsequently recovered. Following the arrest of a Thai content creator for OnlyFans, the Royal Thai Police have now decided to go after another subset of content creators, people who wear sexy police, army, or other government official uniforms. The Royal Thai Police say that they have already found Thai accounts that depict girls dressed as sexy police officers and were already investigating them and wanted to warn the public that this is a crime. Well, thanks for sharing us that you guys have been binge watching OnlyFans over at headquarters. Just don't forget to wash your hands afterwards. The deputy spokesman said that those who dress in these sexy versions of the uniforms on their OnlyFans accounts would not only be violating the Computer Crime Act for posting the images, but also the Police Act for impersonating an officer. I don't think anyone has ever confused a cop with an OnlyFans girl, but okay. Alright, so in more serious news, the Meteorological Department has issued a warning for the north, northeast, east, and central regions as it monitors tropical storm Dianmu, which is expected to be downgraded to a tropical depression. The department says the storm made landfall over the central Vietnamese province of Quang this morning and is about 260 kilometers southeast of Amnacharan province in northeast Thailand. With a maximum sustained winds of 65 kilometers an hour, the storm is moving west at around 20 kilometers an hour and expected to become a tropical depression as it reaches Amnatarun and neighboring Ubon Ratchathani. Therefore, more rain is forecast with isolated to heavy downpours for the north, northeast, east, and central regions, including Bangkok and surrounding areas. Residents are being warned of the risk of flash flooding, with the following areas expected to bear the brunt of the storm over the next 2 days. And that's all for the news this week. Check out the videos that just popped up to keep watching content on the Thaiger channel instead of OnlyFans. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and Thailand News Today will be back on Monday. See you then.